Hey there, entrepreneur, and welcome to today's show. I have not one, but two fantastic entrepreneurs with me today. I have the co-CEOs of Evermore Pet Food. And first up, we have Hanna Mandelbaum, who is the fairy dog mother of Evermore Pet Food. She's the big picture, out of the box thinker who crafts a broader strategic vision for their brand and handles, the day-to-day sales, marketing, customer service, partnerships area of things. And then I have Alison Blumberg, who is the Sourcer S, which I love the fact that they said that about you, that you have that in your bio. In her role, she researches and vets the ethical vendor partnerships and oversees the aspects of production. And, it says here that you love a good spreadsheet, which so do I, friends. So do I. Right. But overall, both of these women are really driven by the passion about animal welfare, sustainable food systems, making good stuff for our pets, which I think they should be eating just as well as we are. So ladies, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I know. There's two of you. So it's kind of one of those like, who talks? I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go though, folks. So Hanna, I want to start with you because you both had a beautiful story. The two of you kind of seemed like divine intervention, the way that you kind of stumbled across one another. And I know your story started in Brooklyn, right? With a dear friend who she seemed, I was reading the article as I was telling you both, and she seemed like a magnificent human being. And I know that she has left us, but I know she lives on with both of you. So Hanna, can you tell me a little bit about the background of, what inspired this brand?
Sure. So when I moved to Brooklyn from Chicago, I was sort of a bohemian artist type. I really wanted to make it as a painter, but that doesn't pay the bills. So I was a dog walker. I studied comparative religion in college, which is hard to admit, but instead of, I like to say I got it backwards, I found dog afterwards. So I was a dog walker, and Alison actually was one of my dog walking clients, as well as Mary. And she was also a bohemian type as well, but she was significantly older. She lived in my neighborhood after moving from Tribeca, where she had lived during 9/11.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And she also was a neighborhood dog walker type. In addition to, after 9/11, all of the dogs in the neighborhood started getting cancer, including her own dog. And, we're seeing that now. All of these people who had stayed, all the first responders, they're all developing these health problems. But it was happening a lot faster with dogs because they're just, smaller creatures. Right. Her own dog got diagnosed with cancer and was given a 6-month prognosis. She, like all of us dog owners, loved her dog and didn't want him to die so soon. So she researched everything she could do and started cooking for him. He ended up living another 6 years as opposed to 6 months.
Yeah.
In the meantime, she had started cooking for all of the dogs in the neighborhood. Everyone came to her, and she very organically started what we like to call an underground dog food company.
Nice.
And I met her because she had become priced out of Tribeca, as prices were skyrocketing, and moved to my neighborhood in Brooklyn. She hired me to walk her dog and a bunch of dogs that she was boarding over the holidays when she had a temporary bout of pneumonia. She got better, but kept me coming over because I think she just loved the company. She didn't have too many friends around. And over time, I learned about her dog food company. And then one day, out of the blue, I got a call. She was in the middle of having a stroke, which was crazy. And I was like, hey, did you call 911?
Not me. Call them.
She didn't. She called me, her dog walker, before she called 911.
Yeah.
So suddenly I was kind of catapulted into the situation where I was the caretaker for this woman who didn't really have any immediate family. I became her healthcare proxy, her power of attorney, and just helped her with the pieces of managing her life. And all of these people started contacting me like, this is really tragic. Can we still get our dog food? Which I don't know what that says about. Yeah. And this is where Alison comes in. A mutual friend had let Alison know about the situation. And we contacted her to see if she would be willing to help out. And I think Alison needs to take it from here.
Yeah, so I was a health supportive chef before most recently I was working as a health supportive chef, and I was just coming back from a summer camp where I had worked at their inaugural year where they were shifting everything off of package, process, bag. We were making everything from scratch. It was very cool. And when I was there, I heard from my landlord, who I was also in Brooklyn, that he was selling the apartment and I had to move out. So the mutual friend that we had, or how I got to Hanna, was, a friend. And I was like, I need to find somewhere else to live, have you heard of anything? And he said, actually, there's this very, very unusual situation. I know Hanna, but she has this dog walking client who's going to be in the hospital for about 4 to 6 weeks. She has this, kind of cottage dog food, or this small business, some of it she's doing out of her apartment even, and nobody who's been able to step in to help has a culinary background. Since you do, maybe you can go stay there, find your own sublet. Then, you can move out, she'll move back in, and life will resume as usual. And so, given the circumstances and my personality, there wasn't much likelihood I was going to say no to that. And so, so I said, okay, fine. And my dog, I brought down to Florida where my parents were, because I was going to be in limbo, was going to go down, get him, come back up. And within the few weeks of that happening, when I checked in with Hanna, she had told me that, are we using, what name are we?
Mary. We're going with Mary.
That Mary.
Sorry, the names have been changed to protect them.
Of course.
I believe at that point she had suffered 1 or 2 more incidences. I'm not sure, and that she was not going to be recovering quite as quickly, but there was still the likelihood that she would. In any case, I moved in and started helping out. And Hanna and I did not know each other all that well at that point, but the two of us just seemed like we were chosen to come in and help in this situation. So where do we take it from there, Hanna? How do you want to? She's much better at telling stories. I'm the tangent queen. So she needs to keep me in line. Otherwise, we will be spending our entire time still like me telling you how it felt when I walked in the apartment. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway,
so long story short, Mary ended up actually never recovering. She never saw the outside of a nursing facility. She actually had gotten to the point where for a little while she couldn't talk at all. She had to communicate to us by pointing at letters on a placard. And it was really a very difficult time. We did tell her. So over the period, Alison's dog Connor was like thriving on this food. And we'd also, after several months, realized this is a great idea, but there's not a real functional business here. But we really want to carry on this legacy because this is something that needs to be in the world.
Yeah.
So we came to Mary, who had actually been visiting very regularly. Like Alison would cook soups for her once she could swallow again. Now I'm with the tangents. But anyway, we went and we asked her for her blessing. We were like, look, we want to do this, but we just really need to start over with a clean slate, start a new business, and take it from there. And we very much had her blessing. So that's how Evermore was born.
That's wonderful. And what does Evermore mean?
It's about a continuity and the love that we have for our dogs, which is forever. But also, to be in full transparency, there was a period of time, there was a dog named Ever in the neighborhood. So I'm not gonna lie that was part of it. There was originally a small group of people that did kind of step in along with us who wanted to help. But as in these situations, people can be very gung-ho in the very beginning, but then kind of fall off very quickly.
Yeah, no, that's really, that's true. And especially when you guys are dealing with adversity and now you're starting a business and you're caretakers for the pet and for Mary, that's a lot to juggle. And I know there was that part in the article that was beautiful when, you said that she was able to look out the window and see her her puppy.
Oh,
I was like, oh my goodness.
That was the last time I
reading
saw
it.
her. That was the last
Yeah.
time I saw her. I got her dog. A good friend of mine was able to take her dog in. Not the same dog after this was a different dog,
Yeah.
but was able to take her dog in and give him a really great home. He just died a few years ago, but the last time I went to visit her, I took him into the nursing home to, she said goodbye to him. And then I took him to the beach outside of her window so she could see him romping around on the beach.
That's amazing. I
It
mean,
was really sad.
yeah, I mean, but the dedication that you both kind of showed in that, and the respect that you're paying to her legacy is absolutely, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So then, who wants to take it from there, ladies? Because then I know you started kind of, diving more into the recipes and selling locally and different things like that. So who's next?
So, I mean, I can start and then Hanna can take over. I mean, because then the adversity of actually like starting a business. So remember, we're in a recession at the time, right? This is not the best time for two people to start a business, let alone two people with no business background.
Right.
I had a culinary background. Hanna had a professional dog background. And, and we're both, I'd like to say intelligent, but we did not have, the business understanding of what we were getting into. So, we figured out certain things that we needed to do, like making sure that all of our ingredients were USDA stamped since they were working in a kitchen, that the balancing of the nutrients, I mean, we did a lot of consulting. We had to, really rethink some of the aspects of the recipes and a lot of that stuff. There was a big learning curve. And then obviously we had to get into store. So another challenge was that this was not a category people understood. The idea of home cooking, most people only knew from those times their vet would say, like, my dog's not feeling well. I mean, I grew up with, like, sometimes our dog Cassie my mom would be making, chicken and rice for her. And we'd always like say that the dog ate better than everybody else, but yeah, a gently cooked food, people knew raw, people knew canned. And then kibble, of course. And so we had a couple strikes against us as we were starting out, which thankfully we were kind of not, naive enough to keep doing it without realizing what a battle was uphill. Like,
if we knew what we were getting into, if somebody came to us and like, this is everything you have to do over the next decade, I don't know if
you would have run.
Actually, if we had our eyes open, I don't know if we would have gone into it,
but we believed really deeply in it, the passion that had born the initial piece of it, and also what we were bringing to it. I mean, I was a health supportive chef. I had, done my externship at Gramercy Tavern. I had cooked at a summer camp, and now it was sort of the same thing, but for dogs. So really the only difference was the end user. The idea of using accountably sourced, good food, and nourishing beings and bodies was really what I cared most about. And so, and having a dog and seeing, like Hanna said, firsthand, how even just a few weeks of shifting over to this food, and he'd never eaten bad food to begin with. I've always been very focused on this, but he immediately had more energy. His coat was shinier. He had been carrying a couple extra pounds and he shed them. And it was just so like inspiring that's really what carried us in those first few years when it was just very hard. But anyway, I don't know if you want to kind of talk about the pounding the pavement stuff. I mean, it's a lot of funny moments too,
I mean, before you jump in there, it blows my mind that people are so kind of taken aback by feeding dogs good food. Like, it blows my mind a little bit, like.
Well, veterinarians are the only health professionals that tell their patients to eat more highly processed foods and less variety. True. So it is always a little bit shocking to us.
Mm-hmm. And I think people get confused. The idea is, yes, we should eat the way our pets should eat the way that we eat, but they don't need to eat the same cuts we eat, but they should eat from the same animals. If we're going to care about the welfare of the meat that we buy, there are cuts that you can give to a dog. Dog's not going to be as picky. The same way, like, one of the things that we don't have to do with our food that we would do with a human food is seasoning. We don't have to add salt, and we're not going to try and make it super tasty. But dogs, there's no reason why the quality should be different. And there's generally ways to do it. So I think people think that somehow you're saying, well, your dog should have, a filet mignon. No, there's other aspects to, and it's using up also, like one of my favorite things with being able to support the best vendors is solving problems for them by being able to take cuts that have the right fat content and have the right humane. Anyway, I'm jumping way ahead on this, but it gets I think people tend to think and it is on some level a luxury, but it doesn't have to be like fancy.
Right.
Just because your dog's eating well.
Right.
And ingredients.
And I mean, in a lot of cases, your pet is a member of your family. It blows my mind when I hear things about like kind of that processed food and the people who are experts at it recommending it. It also kind of breaks my heart a little bit because, I mean, I'm a cat person. Sorry, ladies. But
no, we're cat people. Okay.
But my cat is like my first child, so, but anyways,
Honor's here with me as we talk.
Look at
So,
that.
yeah. I mean, I
just love it. So Hanna, why don't you talk to us about the pounding the pavement thing? Because I know you guys just like set up shop up front of a store and like kind of do your thing, right?
So much. Yeah. So it was a lot of going to every single store and pleading for why we belonged there. And some store owners got it. I had one store owner who her store was very much raw focused, basically chased me out of the store, telling me it was pure human arrogance that we should think so that we can change a wolf and that they should be eating cooked food. Meanwhile, her whole store is like lined with freezers full of raw food and then piles of kibble and cans. So it was a little bit of a disconnect, but there was a huge educational challenge for forging a new category, because at the time we were doing this, there were a few companies sort of starting at the same time we were around the country, but it really was not a thing that people were doing, these frozen cooked diets. Yeah. So it was a big challenge, but some people were really excited about it. It was actually not as difficult as getting those first orders from stores as getting the reorders. I could really show the value of the product to the store owners, but there was a little bit of a disconnect. Even with attempting to do store education, they'd kind of put it in their freezer and forget about it. So then it became a situation where I had to go, stand out in front of the store and like scoop dog food every so many. So there was this one store in the West Village that was kind of considered our get. We really wanted to be in the store, and we went in probably 5 or 6 times and kept being told no. So I was like, look, how about this? We come on a nice weekend day, we set up in front of the store, and we'll do it on consignment. Whatever we sell there, you just pay us for our wholesale. And if we can sell a whole box, then you have to take us in.
Nice.
Sure enough, we managed to accomplish that.
Yeah,
it was easy peasy.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was kind of our biggest early victory. And then after, it didn't take that long for us to get interest from places a little bit further away. And we were told that we would need a distributor, because before that we'd been driving around to all the stores
of course,
with Alison. What, you had a Camry, right?
Oh, and a Honda Civic.
Oh, it was a Honda Civic. That's right. In this like tiny little Honda Civic, like packed to the gills with boxes of dog food. So we were driving around the city doing this, and finally one store owner was like, "Hey, you need distribution." So
you're like, "What is distribution?"
Yeah, what is distribution? I knew what that was at the time, but I ended up cold calling what is now one of the biggest distributors in the United States, Pet Food Experts. And they were actually just beginning to go through a rapid expansion themselves. But I somehow managed to cold call and get the CEO of the company on the phone, which never happened.
No, that's awesome.
It was crazy. And this was not a small company at the time. So we managed to coordinate to have a meeting to meet at Natural Products Expo East. We ended up meeting there.
In Boston.
Yeah, in Boston. I was going to say,
it was in Boston.
I know what that is. Yeah.
So we ended up setting up this meeting based on a cold call. And by the end of that meeting, we had secured enough interest our passion just like really came across to have another meeting to meet them at their headquarters in Rhode Island to seriously discuss distribution. And I'll never forget, during the meeting, as we're extolling the virtues of our food, Alison is just sitting there, and I think she noticed a piece of kale, and she just picked it up and started eating it absentmindedly. Like it wasn't even like she was trying to prove a point. She was just, oh, there's some kale.
Because it is,
You
it's
just eat
just
it.
food. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just food. It's actual food, folks.
But he definitely, I remember, I mean,
That sealed the deal.
yeah.
Well, because I think, he obviously, like you said, your passion came through and you knew what you were talking about. And then you ate the kale, which was, closed the deal, man. And I know I had read an article too about you all, how you ate it for 30 days too.
31 was March.
31 days. Can we detour a little bit to that?
Yeah.
Because that's
actually I had
awesome.
that idea at Natural Products Expo.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, we basically this was very early on, and this was 2011, but this was just around the same time that we secured the distribution deal. Nice. But we were frustrated because we had no money for marketing.
Right.
We knew we made a great product, and we're just, okay, how can we get it out there? And for some reason, I'm a real fan of like sitcom solutions to real world problems. So I came up with the idea. It was very much a collaboration, but I was like, hey, what if we just ate it for a month, like Super Size Me? So
did you see that documentary?
Yes. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's amazing. That's the better side of it.
Yeah. So I was like, maybe we can get media attention that way.
Yeah.
So originally we'd planned to launch with distribution, I think in March or April. So we decided it would be a lead up to our launch with distribution.
Yeah.
So we put out a press release in February. Hey, we're going to do this thing. By a month before we were even supposed to start, one little publication picked it up. I think it was the Poughkeepsie Journal. Then another publication picked it up. Then the Daily News picked it up. Then we get 1010 Wins. There's like this New York AM station that does a lot about the traffic and small, weird local news. So we got interviewed for 1010 Wins. Then that day that it's airing, I get a call. Hi, this is Jeannie Mose from CNN. We'd love to come to your house and interview you. So
I watched that. That was awesome, by the way.
Watch the segment. It's a fun one. Yeah.
That's our 15 minutes of fame. I mean, hopefully not. Hopefully something else will put that down the ranking on Google.
I mean, Kathy Lee and Hoda ate it, but then didn't mention our company, which was so weird.
Probably one of the biggest fights we've ever had is right before Jeannie Mose coming to our office, which was a home office, and just being like, this place is a mess. We have to get presentable for TV. And we had half an hour to scramble before the TV crew was there.
Oh my God.
So it was a tsunami. We had some British photographer come and photograph us for some sort of international thing. We'd appeared in Chinese news. It was this tsunami. Meanwhile,
good job.
Good
job.
If
what happened to the kitchen where we couldn't actually launch for distribution? Do you remember? I remember.
No, tell me. I mean, I will.
At our kitchen in Massachusetts.
Oh yeah.
The head chef ended up having to have heart surgery.
Oh,
so our distribution launch got pushed back. So our distribution didn't happen at the same time as the press.
Oh, it was more also, and we had
and we didn't have a web store to sell anything. Like we had no idea about selling frozen food online. So
we did not expect our $300 press release that we just put out to get this. And so,
wow.
So it was a bit of a wasted opportunity, but because we have done that, it lives there in perpetuity and no other company can do it. I was so convinced some other company was going to do this if we didn't do it first.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they would have.
Yeah. So what we would do is every day at lunch, we would do live feeds. We would stream it and we would each have a bowl of food. And then also when we weren't eating the food on, our live feeds, we only ate ingredients in the food for the entire month.
Wow.
I mean, a couple condiments. We had like a small list of allowables.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, and we would just talk about the ingredients and make food using the ingredient. It was fun because being a health supportive chef, I could come up with granola. Like I'd wake up in the middle of the night or in the morning, I'd be like, there's oats and barley. We can use barley malt syrup and we can add blueberries and pumpkin seeds and we can make granola bars. Like,
those granola bars were great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was a super creative time and just being able to talk about, because the other thing about the food is when you're not looking to rely on supplements, every single ingredient has to do a job basically to hit your nutritional numbers. And so, yeah, they were super nerdy, those videos, but really fun, I would say. You brought
They're
your
kind of
mom
funny.
on. They're funny, but I mean, it's just us being us. So it was,
which is the best kind of marketing and PR
Yeah.
you can have, is when you can actually just lean into yourselves
yeah.
and put it out in the world. So, I mean, so it launched. Did it launch the distribution?
It
People
did.
were right.
It did.
Yeah, at our height, we were probably in close to 200 retail establishments. But what happened is we did keep continuing to have that same problem where stuff would get into stores and the retailer would be super excited about, and it just wouldn't translate into sales to customers. And I was running myself ragged.
Yeah.
I drove everywhere, like from Maine down to the Carolinas.
Wow.
And was doing all of these dog events. There are a staggering number of dog events.
Who knew?
Like, you're a cat person, you don't know, but on any given weekend, there's like all kinds of like dog festivals. But
Interesting.
yeah, it was exhausting and it wasn't working.
You even went to a few dog weddings, right?
Yeah, we catered some dog
That's
weddings.
amazing. That is amazing, right there.
A bark mitzvah.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that, and but ultimately it became clear, and Alison is the one who really was like, no, we were very loyal to our distributors. Like, I really liked them as people.
Yeah,
they were great. They were super supportive.
But at the end of the day, it wasn't working. If we stuck with that model, it would have put us out of business. And Alison was the one who initiated the wake up call.
Yeah. And this was also after a little botched, potential funding option that really would have been a terrible fit for us. Because at that point we were really, we were trying to play by the rules presented to us about how you were supposed to grow, what our industry expected. And so we were trying to fit ourselves into an industry where our products didn't really make as much sense, and we didn't make as much sense. We weren't, industry veterans who knew the whole, had a bunch of buddies in it. And so once we hit, I'd say that would be the rock bottom point, right? When we decided to not take funding that would have just really changed who we were, how we were, what we did, how we grew. So once we pulled out of that, it became very clear that we were not ever going to get where we needed to through distributors. And Hanna, you had been pretty pro getting an online store going up until that time, but we hadn't done it. But I remember it was right at the end of 2014, or was it 2013?
We got the online store going. I think around the time of your wedding, but it wasn't really a big revenue source. We didn't have the fulfillment piece figured out.
Right.
It was a
Different
very
model.
small fraction of customers. It was a very small piece of things. It was really only when we pulled from distribution, which I believe was 2015, I
want to say at the end of 2014, we made our own website because we'd also been really dependent on everybody for everything. And as we've learned over and over, we have a problem. We search high and low for experts, and then we realize that we can somehow do it ourselves.
Yeah, you're the expert.
And do it better. And we designed our own aesthetic. We actually co-designed that logo. That's kind of what I was saying. That's why I had showed it, but we never mentioned it then. But we co-designed our logo and kind of highlighting even deeper, like the interconnectedness of it all.
Yeah.
And once we did that, we started the store. It was like the seas parted, everything. It's kind of like, when you're just on your path and you keep hitting roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, and you keep going and you keep going. And then there's like this ray of sun comes in, it leads you this way. And then all of a sudden it's like this beautiful path. And you're like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to go, but that's how I'm supposed to go. And then you start following the easier one that seems like it's the one you're supposed to be on. And then all of a sudden, well, that's when our business really started. I think. I feel like we had this big proof of concept for so many years. But we weren't able to take it anywhere. And then once this happened, where we could interact directly with customers, there wasn't a middleman. There were basically two middlemen when you had a distributor.
Yeah, of course.
This way, Hanna could actually interact with the end user, and we could move our food, not have to make a ton of food all at once, hoping we would sell it. We really understood how much we needed to make. It became really fun. but it was a
Yeah.
very,
Yeah,
I mean, it was fun before, but now it was like fun because we were running a
were
business.
doing
because we were
it, and
actually
you were at your
making money.
passion. And I have to
It's
say,
amazing.
I have to say kudos for turning down the money, ladies, because, I hear that a lot when people are like, oh, I felt this pressure. I had to take the money because I had arrived, right? Like I'd worked so hard to get to that point. And then all of a sudden, so you're right. That's kind of one of those open sliding door moments, right? Where you're like, oh, which way do I go? Which one do I do? And imagine you would have missed out. You would have missed
We
out.
also would be
Oh,
out
yeah.
of business by now
Yeah,
because
yeah.
because honestly, it was so unrealistic what would have been expected of us. And
Yeah.
it almost seemed we would have been beholden to a group of men.
Of course. Yep.
And
Food industry.
and,
Yep.
and expected to pretty much funnel the money that they gave us back to their buddies. It seemed so antithetical to what we were about. We just didn't want a bunch of men holding the purse
You can
strings.
say it. It's cool. We know here.
Holding the purse strings, telling us what to do. Like, here, little ladies, do all of these things we tell you, and you'll be rich.
Oh, and the hoops they were putting us through. Remember? Oh,
yeah, it was. Oh, the hoops. So many hoops. It just became so clear that it would take the soul out of our company and just turn it into something that we weren't. And
yeah. And you guys are so much soul, and so kind of like just a great mission. And I like the fact that it put Hanna back in touch with the customers, or both of you, because you've told me multiple times here that the challenge is that the customers weren't buying it, or they weren't seeing it. And then all of a sudden they could see you, which is a great selling point.
Then it hit the ground running. We were both doing demos on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I was like, we had more business up out of the East Coast. So Hanna was lugging, these 40-pound boxes to FedEx and UPS. We were, dry ice places. Then I started doing it. I mean, we both had like back issues at some point until we could get big enough that we could actually pass it off, but we weren't big enough for a while. So we were doing it. There were like 4 days a week. I mean, the only people I saw since I worked from home were pretty much my friends at the dry ice place and my friends at UPS and FedEx. But I think it was really important to do it. I mean, we haven't been doing that for years, but knowing every aspect of your business and understanding what goes into it is really important. I remember seeing someone and explaining I did that, and they were like, why don't you just hire people?
It's not the same though. I mean, I understand what they're saying, right? Like maybe you could have grown faster. I don't know. A lot of different situations could have happened there, but you're right, where it's not the same if you can't really understand all the different moving pieces. Because then when you do hire someone, you have a little bit more empathy and a little bit more compassion and understanding for their back, right? Or for whatever part of their body they're putting into this situation, right?
Yeah, we now work with a third-party fulfillment company, and just offloading to not having to do it to ourselves freed us up for so much more other stuff. But I think we didn't even realize how much time we had because we were so busy with that piece of things. And interacting with the customers for so long on my end, we did hire someone now who does customer service full time, and she's amazing.
She's amazing.
Right.
She's so amazing. But I could train her on every piece of it. She's not reading off of a script. I have imparted every piece of knowledge that I've gained. She has autonomy to figure out how to handle different solutions and issues, but that's because I know how to handle those solutions and, how to handle every problem.
Right.
So it really is important to do.
And it continues your mission. It continues your mission, and it doesn't allow you guys to kind of have that disconnect that you see as companies scale, where all of a sudden they're removed, right? The founders are removed by like 10 steps up, and they don't have that kind of that arm that goes to their employees below. So bravo on that. So take us to kind of current day, ladies. Like, what are you seeing right now? What are you up to now?
Well, manufacturing is not a fun job to be doing right now.
I was going to say, that's
it's fun if you like challenges, and sometimes I do. But anyway, we have trying to make sure that we get our food made. We are very grateful for having had the philosophy of our partners, our vendors being our partners, of being loyal. At some point early on, it was always like about trying to get the best price and focusing almost exclusively on your profit margin and all that. And at some point it became very clear that to get consistent quality and to build loyalty, you had to really pick and choose who you were going to work with, even if it meant a little bit more,
Yeah.
knowing that you were guaranteeing income to company. So we were able to get through a lot of the pandemic without having too many hiccups from a sourcing standpoint. We're now seeing things like delays
Yeah, of course.
and issues, and everybody's prices are going up.
Yeah.
And so it's been challenging. January, a lot of people were not working because they were homesick.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
things got pushed back. So there's the challenge there, but it's also because we've been growing.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's also a very different landscape from the competitive aspect of just the category itself has
Can I talk
gone
about
from Hanna's taking this over. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, this is my jam is
Nice.
knowing what's going on in the landscape.
Nice.
So when we started this, as I mentioned, there were maybe 3 small companies in different corners of the country doing it. Now the market is approaching saturation. It seems like every day there's another company making a food in our category. Sometimes it feels almost cynical, like the way that some of these start overnight. It just seems like a bunch of money is pumped into something and they're putting it out there because they know there's money in the space. I'd say the top 3 companies that people compare us to have had at least $100 million in investments. There's one company, Nom Nom Now, that was just purchased by Mars for $1 billion. So it is a huge, and they only started like 3 or 4 years ago. It is a space that is flush with money.
Yeah.
And it's funny, when we first started having these competitors, my hackles would go up. To use a dog analogy, I was just really upset that they were there. They're copycats. It drove me crazy.
Yeah.
But now
language listed on
now I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Now I'm grateful that they're there because they're doing the hard, expensive work of building category awareness.
Good. Yeah.
So people understand like, oh, there's this type of food out there. And we're just doing the work of keeping our heads down and making a better product. Right. And being recognized by industry experts and, by some press as making that better product.
Right.
So people will already make the conversion jump to these sort of bigger, less expensive, and I'm going to say cheaper products. And then if they want something better, if they look a little harder, they find us. So we're just organically getting a lot of customers on the basis of the existence of these behemoth companies. And behemoth is really an unfair characterization because in the grand scheme of the pet food industry, these other companies are still very, very small.
Right. Right. I mean, there's that old saying, like, if you want to open a pizza shop, there's the best place to open a pizza shop is right next door to another one. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because you get the people who aren't as, who may be not satisfied with that one. But for you guys, you're very mission driven. You're very focused on quality. And I have clients who have dealt with similar things that you're saying, where they're like, but everyone's pumping it out. Yeah, but everyone's not you. Right.
Yeah.
And like you to bring to the table what needs to be brought and the quality. So, I mean, bravo for that. But of course you're going to be like upset at first. Like, where were all these people 10 years ago? Like when you were trying
the texts at every hour being like, did you see this one? And then I'd immediately run and look at like the ingredients and I'd be like, yeah, but it's doing this, 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 and this, or like, or like, 21 supplements, or, I mean, it would just be like looking at a recipe or like looking at claims. So it was really kind of a challenge at first, but I agree. I think it
makes it better.
It's good though, in some ways or not in some ways, it's good that there's more access to fresh food at various price points. And it really does change your dog when you start giving fresh food. So in a lot of ways, it's just, we're also grateful just that that's more available. And that's
even less optimal versions of what we do are light years ahead of processed pet food from a health standpoint. And we understand that what we are doing, to be like fully transparent, is at the highest price point in this category. So you do get what you pay for though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm always a very big fan of companies who kind of stay true to mission and who are kind of quality driven like that, because it's just, that way, where you stand too. And I think it's good that if you hadn't kind of to have the past, right, and have that experience, you wouldn't kind of know where your true north was, I think, with a lot of this stuff, right?
Yeah, it's really helped us clarify it and feel like we can live our own values. Because at first it didn't feel that way. It felt like when you started a business, you had to play this role. And I feel like at times we both had to come, and even if there is a different way the business could have gone, this is the way the business needed to go for the two of us.
Yeah.
And for us to come to each other. I mean, this is just how we needed our path to be. And it's really cool to be able to have honored that. But I never would have expected going in that I could actually come out, 10 years later and feel like I'm doing this as myself.
Yeah. Which is beautiful. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. I mean, there's this kind of stereotype or this like mold of entrepreneurship in general, right? Like this is what an entrepreneur looks like and does and hustles and grinds, never sleeps and makes millions overnight, like whatever that might be, right? But it's the people like that stay true to why they started it and their story that kind of flourish in the end, because you're playing the long game too.
Always, yeah. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
And like at the end of every single, we've said that a lot over
Me
the
too.
years.
Me too.
Yeah.
I want to get it like tattooed on my forehead sometimes backwards so I can read it in the mirror. Well, ladies, so let me start with you, Hanna. Like, what do you think? We're gonna digress a little bit and move into the resilience thing, but what do you think are kind of give me like one or two things that kind of get you through adversity?
Ooh, that is a good question because I have had a lot of adversity lately. Honestly, getting my body moving and checking in with my body. That is the number one thing. We're organisms, we're beings, we're meant to move, we're meant to get outside. And for me, if everything is like freaked out and I'm moving too fast and spinning out, I just need to go outside and take a nice walk or run. So I'd say that's the first thing, is just be in my body. And the second thing that gets me through adversity is picking up the phone and calling Alison.
That's a good partner.
She's seriously the older sister I never had. So, and I mean that sincerely.
I mean, I pretty much have the same answer as she does too. Like, I mean, maybe music in my ears at the same time as
for
talking, but no, I would have said, we spend a lot of time not talking about work. You know what I mean? Like we really, it's pretty amazing when you think about how we were kind of brought together. Really felt like divine intervention. Like it almost doesn't make any other sense. Sometimes it's just too weird of a story. But we're very different, but we're so aligned at deep levels. Like it's really pretty amazing. We'll have something that could really be like a tear apart situation for two people because they could be on, and we're usually like our thought process of getting there totally different, our points of reference, but we really, I think our hearts are so aligned that even on a personal, on a personal level too. So it's been pretty amazing.
Wow, that's impressive. And I'm with you both. Never underestimate the power of like getting into your body. And like actually, and nature too. Both of those things, right? Combined, and music. We'll take all three. Just put them together. Right. Well, ladies, this has been an absolute pleasure. You both are a complete delight, and I love your story. So one of you, whoever, tell people where they can find you, please, so that they can go check out this amazing product.
I guess I'll kick it off. Evermorepetfood.com.
Nice.
Is where you can find us online, and our food is available in 48 states. We will also ship to Alaska and Hawaii, but you have to ask nicely.
Because that's a big shipping.
There's definitely an additional fee for that. So that's where you can find our website. And then we are on Instagram. Our handle's at Evermore Pet Food. Nice. And also on Facebook / Evermore Pet Food. So we're real easy to find.
I love it.
And there are retail stores throughout the country too on our store locator. And they're pretty peppered throughout. So if you do live locally, it's worth checking out, right?
It's pretty random where our retail is. Basically, we work with retailers who contact us and we'll ship direct. So we took out the distributor model for that.
That's great. that's, might as well, right?
Yeah.
If you can, where you can do it then. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here with me today. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been
Thank
great.
you. Thank you so much for
This was
having
fun.
us.
It went fast.